Good afternoon, everyone. Hello, thank you for joining this afternoon. My name is Larry Socha. I'm the Public Affairs Officer at U.S. Embassy Bridgetown here in Barbados. And I want to thank all of you for joining this virtual session on 5 Steps to U.S. Study. Happy International Education Week. I'm so thrilled that we get to talk about one of my favorite parts of my job as a public affairs officer, which is to talk about education in the United States and the benefits that can be derived from studying in the United States, really at any level, whether at the secondary level, undergraduate, graduate, or even postgraduate degree levels. Really happy we have a number of experts with us today. Renita Charles joins us from Dominica. She's our EducationUSA advisor there in Rousseau. So Renita, good morning. Thank you for joining. And Milissa Emmanuel as well joins us from St. Lucia. She's our EducationUSA advisor at the Sir Arthur Lewis Community College. And so glad that she can join us here in this virtual session today. We also have Brianna Bailey-Gevlin, who's joining us from the same building I'm in a different room. She is a consular officer and knows all the ins and outs of those F1, M1, and other types of visas related to education and study in the United States. It's an exciting week, this International Education Week. The Institute for International Education actually released their annual Open Doors report today, and I can proudly say that for the 5th year in a row, more than 1 million international students are studying in the United States. And that's something we're really proud of, that 5.5% of all higher education students are international students. And that really contributes to the diversity and the energy and all the wonderful things that happen in higher education in the United States. It's also, for a couple years in a row now, and we've seen an increase in the number of American students studying outside of the United States at international institutions around the world. And so we actually hit an all-time high in this last year. If I can find the number here, 347,099 American students are studying abroad in countries like Barbados and Dominica and St. Lucia. And so we're really proud of that as well. But without further ado, I want to turn it over to the experts this morning. So excited to have Brianna and Renita and Milissa with us this morning. If you have any questions at all during the presentation or during the question and answer session that we'll have at the end, please just type those into the chat box on Facebook, and we'll, of course, respond to those as best we can. And if we don't have an immediate answer, we'll provide one later. But we want this to be an interactive session, and we're so glad, again, that you can join us today for this first event of our International Education Week. With that, I'll turn it over to Milissa. Good afternoon, Milissa.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for being here. As Larry said, I am Milissa Emmanuel, your EducationUSA advisor for St. Lucia. Today's presentation will provide a brief overview of EducationUSA's 5 steps to US study. If you would like more information on any of the steps identified here today, please email your advisor in your country to schedule an appointment. Next slide, please. What is EducationUSA? EducationUSA is a U.S. Department of State network of over 430 international advising centers in more than 175 countries. Advisors are trained to guide students through our 5 steps to U.S. study. EducationUSA is not affiliated with any particular college or university, nor do we promote any one college or university. EducationUSA works with all accredited universities to ensure that students find the institution which is the best fit for them. At EducationUSA, we emphasize the importance of fit. Next slide, please. Advising centers are located in each of the 7 countries in the U.S. Embassy's area of responsibility. So we have centers in Barbados, Antigua and Barbuda, St. Kitts and Nevis, Dominica, Grenada, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Next slide. You can visit the website education.state.us for further information on each of the steps that we will be introducing you to. Next slide. The first step, research your options. We begin by asking the students to define their priorities. We provide students with a brief survey to review some of the important factors needed to consider US study. The US admissions process will require the student to work collaboratively with a number of individuals throughout the process. Your parent or guardian, the guidance counselor at your school, your teachers, admissions officers in the US, the US Embassy, and your US Education USA advisor. And if the student is an athlete, your coach. Start early. Applying to US colleges and universities can be quite a lengthy process. We encourage students to begin the process at least 18 months prior to the desired start date. Some US colleges and universities will accept students with CSEC results. However, many will require the student to complete CAPE or an associate degree from a community college in your country. How do you research your options? Refer to college and university websites. Learn about the US higher education system. Use websites like collegeboard.org and petersons.com to compare universities. There are more than 4,500 accredited US higher education institutions. Make a short list of universities to do a deeper dive. Visit, apply. Use the Common App. Identify the criteria for selecting schools. Identify what is most important to you as a student. Your academic strength, the type of school, the size of the school, the location, the reputation, the diversity, special opportunities, safety, graduation, and retention rates. And most importantly, the cost. And there should be an advertisement for a webinar which will be aired on Wednesday at 5 p.m., Financing Your US Studies. So be sure to register. Use your time wisely. Students must start to use their time wisely when preparing to apply for US colleges and universities. They should look to build up their CV with extracurricular activities. This shows a dedication to activities, and it's not about quantity, but quality also. Volunteer work, after school or summer jobs, internships. Students should also be following what is going on in current affairs. Schools want students who are global citizens and who are aware of international current affairs. Students should be involved in their schools, in their communities. They should be developing professional relationships with teachers. Why? Because your teacher has to write your reference letter. Next slide, please. In the US higher education system, there are different degree programs: associate degrees, bachelor's degrees, master's, doctoral, and postdoctoral degrees. The associate degree is usually a 2-year program. Bachelor's is a 4-year program. However, for students at community colleges in the Caribbean, there is the 2+2 program. When a student has completed an associate degree at the community college level, they are entered into the bachelor program where they spend only 2 years to complete their bachelor's degree. Inquire from your Education USA advisor for further information on this. Next slide. Plan your finances. Even prior to starting your college or university search, make a budget of what you can afford. Again, if you tune into the webinar on Wednesday, you will get some very important tips on this step. Education USA presents an honest overview of the costs associated with US study. It can be very expensive. $20,000 to $60,000 US per year. However, with the right amount of planning, research, pursuing a US higher education can be made affordable with high returns on your investment. Major costs associated with US study include tuition and fees, room and board, health insurance, books and school supplies, transportation, personal expenses. These are some of the costs associated with US study. Some sources of financing include your parents and or other family members, institutional financial aid. Colleges and universities offer students need-based and merit-based financial assistance. Need-based has to do with whether your parents can afford to pay for your education or not, and merit-based has to do with your academic qualifications. On-campus work is another source of financing for students. Students are allowed a maximum of 20 hours per week working on campus. Other opportunities for working include babysitting and giving high school students lessons. The visa officer will instruct you on the type of visa to apply for this type of work situation. Outside scholarships from agencies and foundations. Again, these two are sometimes based on merit. Sports scholarships for very talented students. Religious organizations. Very good students can reduce their family's costs to below $15,000 per year with financial aid and scholarships and work on campus arrangements. Ways to reduce costs. Look for colleges that offer the highest quality education at the lowest cost. Accelerated programs. You can complete your 4-year degree, bachelor's degree, in 3 years. Some colleges will give you credit for excellent A-level results. Take courses in the summer if available. Take an additional course each semester. This might be a little taxing, but it's a way to reduce costs. Attend community colleges for 2 years. These are often cheaper alternatives than transfer to a 4-year school to finish your degree. When you attend a university after completing community college, you reduce your cost to 2 years and not the 4 years. Leave off campus. You may consider a school close to your relatives, which will be a great reduction to you in cost. Financial aid, student loans. Many options are available at financial institutions to students who want to study. Some of them offer interest-free loans. Scholarships. Universities offer scholarships, like I mentioned earlier, need-based merit-based, sports-based, or even some governments offer scholarships and have arrangements with US universities. Thank you. I pass on to my colleague, Renita.
A pleasant good afternoon to all. I am Renita Charles. I'm Education USA advisor at the Rosa Public Library in Dominica. I'm going to continue with step 3, how to complete your application. The first step is you register online for online profiles, and with that, you have to keep your profile, your web profile that you create, clean and positive. Shed positive light on yourself through that application so that your application will stand out. Secondly, you have to create an application timetable within 12 to 18 months. The application timetable is as follows: January to June, research online and in the Education USA Advising Center that is located, as we said earlier, in the various Caribbean countries to select the 8 to 10 best colleges or the best fit for you. You have to think, plan, and assess your academic and financial resources. You have to prepare also for standardized tests. They can be SAT or ACT. June to August, write essays, respond to essay prompts either provided through the school or through the common application. Many essay topics require you to show your moral or ethical character, leadership skills, or how you will contribute to the school. Then you create your curriculum vitae or your CV, as it is called. It is always good to volunteer and gain skills to make your application much more stronger. Then you start your common app or your common application online. September to December, you continue to work hard in school. Your exam results are always important. Acceptance can be rescinded if you do not maintain your grades. Between March to May, admission decisions begin arriving in April or March. Decide where you want to attend, usually by May 1st, and return your forms or deposits to reserve your space. Deadline admission offers from other schools, so you have to check all of these. Decline admission offers from other schools, seeing that you have chosen, you have made a decision on the school which you would like to attend. June to August, apply for your student visa. Summer tends to be the busiest time for visa appointments, so you would try to exclude these dates. Attend a pre-departure orientation center session, as I will discuss in slide 5. Keep in contact with the international student office at your college or university. In August, start your new adventure in the US. So that would be your application timetable. Within that time, you have to obtain transcripts and recommendations from your secondary school so that you can keep track of application requirements and deadlines. Obtain letters of recommendation from teachers, counselors. Submit exit exam scores, that is your C score or your K. Take standard tests, which is the SAT or the ACT, as was said earlier. Complete application and financial aid form, that is on the SS profile. submit applications on time. Applicants may require a fee, so be of take that into account. Some institutions waive these fees if student requests financial need. So it's based on your need. Between January to April, make sure your applications have been received. Continue to work hard at school because the results are important. And as I said earlier, you the standardized tests and all the general information that you would require for your application. I move to Miss Amber Bailey. She will give you more information on step 4. Applying for your visa.
Thank you, Renita. Hi, everybody. I just want to briefly go over some of the requirements for a student visa. Just contextually, every international student who's studying in the United States is required to have a valid student visa for the duration of their course of study. And so, for example, if you are studying in an undergraduate 4-year program, then you'll have a 4-year validity. Your visa will have a 4-year validity period to match your course of study. So the basic thing is that, as Renita and Melissa were saying, you find a program that you are interested in and get accepted to it. And then your next step is to have an in-person interview at a US embassy or consulate. If you're a resident of the Eastern Caribbean, then generally you're going to end up at the US Embassy here in Barbados, and you're going to bring with you an I-20, which it's a form. You'll pay a fee, and it's called a SEVIS fee. And essentially what it will do is give you an individual number that will sort of track you along in the US and have a list of each semester as to whether you are an active student or out of active student or what have you. And it's essentially just a tracking mechanism to maintain that you are in good status as a student. When you come to your interview, you will be asked to show your I-20, and then you'll be asked by a visa officer why you want to study the program. And I've been asked a lot in my few years of being a visa officer what we're looking for, and there is no perfect answer. Essentially, what we are looking for is why the program matters to you and why you want to study it. And so, for example, were I to apply for a visa, I might talk about some of my professional experience, why I'm interested in an academic program that may be related. It might be wholly uninteresting to the visa officer. That's not the point. It's interesting to you and your life story and why you want to study in the United States. Another thing that you're going to be asked about is, and you've heard a little bit about this from both Melissa and Renita, is how to finance your education in the United States. It is no secret that education in the US can be extremely expensive. I will personally probably be paying off student loans for the next 35 years. And so what we want to know is, can you afford it? And that's not because we want to go through your family's finances or want personal information of you, but generally one of the highest reasons, or one of the most prominent reasons for students either not completing or dropping out of school is because they can't afford it. And so what we as visa officers want to help avoid is helping students be in school and then ultimately winding up in a situation where it's untenable and they have to drop out of school, and then suddenly you're in the US out of status. And so that's where we're coming from. That's why we're asking about your finances. And that's why if we have follow-up questions and want to see bank information or scholarship information or what have you, that is the context of why. And that is pretty much it. Once you appear, you are allowed to receive your visa 90 days before the start of your program. If you interview before then, that's fine. We'll just tell you a date to send your passport back and put a visa in it and get it back to you. If you are refused a student visa, You are always able to reapply, but just be warned that you're going to be asked the same questions again. And if your circumstances haven't changed, that doesn't necessarily mean that a second interview will yield a different result. And that is pretty much it for student visas.
I think we'll go back to the continuation of 3. What kind of applicant you will be? Yes. What type of student are you? Are you an angular or a well-rounded student? An student takes a deep dive into 1 or 2 core activities, often at the exclusion of others, to become world-class in their field. They can come in many forms. Sometimes school voters to fill in some of these buckets. They have special talents. Example,
Hi, we seem to have lost Renita. I will continue where she left off. So we have, what kind of applicants will you be? Angular or well-rounded? Take a deep dive into 1 or 2 core activities, often at the exclusion of others, to become world-class in their field. Students come in all forms. Some have special talents. They may be published writers, commissioned artists, champion coder, national level debater. We have athletes on a national level. Intellectual curiosity. Are you a researcher, a trader, a software hacker, an entrepreneur? You have leadership qualities. Secretary General of the UN, Model UN. Are your academic test scores perfect? Did you do perfectly on the SATs? What legacy do you have in place? A well-rounded applicant goes beyond academics. Diversity, personal qualities, the character, special talents, abilities, extracurricular activities. How is your child doing? Is your child more well-rounded or angular? Does it make sense for them to continue on their current path? Should they specialize in something? Should they stick with the synthesizer approach? What kind of brand do you want to assign for yourself? Renita, do you want to continue the next slide? Education USA services also, we don't only help the students choose their schools and plan their finances and guide them with their applications. We also prepare you for your departure. We understand that you will be going to a place that you have never been, a new culture. So we organize departure orientation sessions, for students. We get you acquainted with the environment that you'll be getting into. I usually tell my students that we are custom of our yam and our dashing in St. Lucia. But then when you go over to the United States, it's a whole new culture, a different culture. Your yam and your dashing may not be in as you may want it. So you may have to settle for pizza and the more lighter staples. We assist students with making their travel arrangements. You need to have somebody to pick you up from the school at the airport when you go there. So we also assist students in that regard. We make sure the admissions office is ready and awaiting our students once they arrive in the US. And we ensure that you have all your documentation prepared, collated to give you a smooth transition when you get to the US. Again, you can follow Education USA via the US Embassy platforms, US Embassy Bridgetown on Facebook. We are on Instagram, US Embassy Bridgetown. Twitter, you can follow us too, US Embassy Barbados. And via the Bridgetown Barbados US Embassy page. If you have any questions, feel free to jot them down in the comments section. Thank you.
Thank you, Milissa, and Renita, who unfortunately I think is having a couple challenges with the connection there, and of course Brianna as well. So much information here. Although I think I have to say, Milissa, that my favorite part was your yam and dasheen may not be as you want it to be, which is a true fact, probably. But the cool part is that you can bring your culture and your food and your cooking to audiences and to people who probably have never experienced it before, and that's such a great part of having international students in the United States. So Brianna, I think there are a number of visa questions. Do you want to talk about how visa operations are working here in Barbados now? Because I think they just changed today, right?
Yeah, thanks, Larry. Happy to. Yes, so student visas, F1s, M1s, and J1s. The one means that you are the student. That's what that notation means. Have always been processed, or have mostly been processed through COVID. We continue to process them. We do have a limited number of interview slots per day in an effort to mitigate the number of people in the waiting room at any given time. So we encourage anyone who wants to study in the United States to make a visa appointment as early as you possibly can. The minute you get into a school, make a visa appointment because there may be a longer waiting time than there is normally. We do our best to get everybody in. We know that student visas are up against the timeline, and we do our best to work with everyone. Please also be aware for anyone coming to Barbados for an in-person interview for either student visa or a B1, B2, which I'll get to in a minute, that if you're coming from outside Barbados, you must strictly adhere to the Barbadian immigration rules surrounding non-residents coming to Barbados. Depending on where you're coming from, that may be a 2-week quarantine. It may be a negative PCR test in hand. You know, in month 9, I think we're all familiar with the fact that the rules around moving around the world change pretty quickly. So please have a pulse on local immigration rules as you come in and follow them carefully. Having an immigrant or a student visa appointment is not a reason to get out of a mandatory quarantine period. That said, we also started processing routine B1, B2, which are tourist business visas as of today. I believe our first appointments available are early December. So if you have reasons that you want to go to the US, please make an appointment. We are still also processing, if you are eligible, renewal, interview waiver. I forget what the abbreviation is here. If you are eligible to skip the interview because you have a valid visa and you meet all the other requirements that are listed on our website, we will also process those. So for example, the woman whose daughter is studying in Brazil may be eligible to not have an in-person interview if her last B1, B2 visa was of full validity and processed in Bridgetown and is still valid. She may be able to DHL her passport to our offices. We can process her new visa and get it back to her. Obviously, she might not want to do that from a foreign country, but that is an option that's available to her, since I believe that most consulates and the embassy in Brazil are operating on extremely limited circumstances, if at all, in the visa world. Did I get everything?
Still haven't mastered the mute button. Thank you, Brianna, for that. Yeah, great question. We've had a number of great questions from Kadisha Compton here. Is the main purpose of an education in the United States solely for the purpose of education, or can they pursue work afterwards? I bet, you know, issues like optional practical training might come up here. Milissa, do you want to take that first? And then Brianna, you might talk about some of the visa pieces of that. Milissa, I think you're still muted there for a second.
I can jump in. Okay. So thanks, Kadisha, for all your questions. A couple of things. You are eligible to work, as Larry said, on the OPT program only on a student visa. And what it is essentially is a 1 to 3 year placement, depending on your program, that you can be placed in anywhere related to your course of study. And there are differing rules for whether or not you study in a STEM field versus in a liberal arts field. And I believe even they might vary as granular as which university, although again, your international student office at your university will know a lot more of the detail on it than I do. But essentially, you are able to work legally in the US for a few years after you complete your degree on your student visa. After that, if you wish to pursue employment in the United States, you'll have to do it through one of our work non-immigrant visas, which could be an L1, or an H-1B, both of which are petition-based, which means that you already have a job offer from an employer in the U.S. who has petitioned for you to have a visa to live and work in the United States. And the validity of that is variant on a number of things, but essentially they're 2 to 5 years long. You could also get a J-1 visa, which is technically in the student visa category, but if you are studying medicine, many residency programs are on J-1s. Many higher education type work programs like doctoral placements wherein you also have a salary or a stipend or on J-1s as well. That is an avenue to you. But the answer is, if you are interested in working in the United States after you complete your course of study, then the best place you should work with is your international student affair offices at your college, who can talk to you about, not only what type of visa you should be on, but might have information about what sort of placements you can look for.
Thanks, Brianna, for that. There is a follow-up from Angela Chase Yard on the visa issue and her daughter who's in Brazil. Is there an area that they can go either on the embassy website or an email address for questions about visas and specific ones like this?
Yep. So our email is bridgetowniv@state.gov. And I'm embarrassed to say I don't know the website, but if you Google U.S. Embassy Bridgetown,
let me jump in here. There it is. Boom, at the bottom of the screen.
Yeah, that'll have the information for if your daughter is eligible for a renew interview waiver program. Again, I forget the acronym. If she's able to send her visa or her passport back without an interview, all of the requirements are on our website for that. If you have further follow-up questions, send us an email and we will let you know.
Yeah, the visas tab is the first tab on the website. So non-immigrant visas, go ahead and click there and there'll be more information. I see our good friend, Michelle Samuel, is on this virtual session. Good afternoon, Michelle. But it has a great question, I think, Milissa, that is probably best suited for your response. It is, if a student is already enrolled in her first semester at Sir Arthur Lewis Community College in St. Lucia and would like to switch to study in the United States, can that be done and what is the procedure?
I strongly believe it is possible, Michelle. However, you can send me an email or put your email address in the link and I can get back to you with a response. But I have been informed of relationships that Sir Arthur Lewis has made with US universities, and I will be presenting them in my webinar on Wednesday. We have relationships with a few universities in the US where they do the 2+2 and other arrangements. So link me your email or you can contact me at castres@educationusa.org. And I will be happy to give you a more in-depth response to your questions. Thank you.
No, that's great, Milissa. Thank you so much. There was an earlier question too about transferring credits and whether courses are accredited or not and how those can transfer. There was helpful information there about it does vary school by school, and that's absolutely true. What Melissa's talking about, I imagine, are articulation agreements, these agreements between Sir Arthur Lewis Community College and other institutions in the United States. And while many of those exist, it is very much a case-by-case basis. So please do reach out to any of our advisors across all 7 countries that Embassy Bridgetown works with to get specific information on what you might be pursuing there. I did see another question, I think, pop up. Maybe not. Milissa, I'm going to ask you, is there a most popular question that you answer there in St. Lucia? Is there something that students are always come to you with that you'd like to share with our online audience this afternoon?
Yes, one of my biggest questions and concern for students is financing. And I believe that students, from secondary school need to have in mind their interest in studying in the US. And from then, they can start putting stuff in place to do that. But however, I believe that they can use options like sports, because I have this student who at South Louis Community College in his first year had never run, was never an athlete. And he chose to begin running because I was the house mistress. He started running at Sa'afa, and within 3 or 4 years after that, he got a sports scholarship to the US. And now I believe he's at Kansas State University. So it's never too late for students to get involved, maybe in community work or in sports, to benefit from the opportunities of scholarships, also financial aid. It's never too late to work on your grades, to work on your academics, to benefit from financial aid and from scholarships. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Milissa. And it's a good segue to an announcement for another online session that we'll have this week on Wednesday, actually, where we'll talk about student athletes in particular and what that means and how you can work with coaches and administrators at your school now to prepare perhaps to play a sport in the United States. So please do join us on Wednesday at noon if athletics is something that you're interested in at the college or university level in the United States. How about you, Brianna? Is there a number one question that you get from students who show up for visas at the window?
It's mostly, well, at visas at the window, it's me asking the questions, Larry. But sort of the presentations that I've done over the past few years, there are a lot of questions. I think that there is an elusive sort of mystery about the visa process if you haven't gone through it. And so most of the questions I get tend to be around, well, what do I do to pass? I just want to pass. How do I pass? And so we really try and talk to potential applicants about, the reality is when you're 18 years old and you're asked questions through a foggy, probably not that clean window in a waiting room, you might not know what you want to do for the rest of your life. That's fine. I also don't know what I want to do for the rest of my life. But what the visa officers are looking for is, have you thought about it? What we want to know is, are you a bona fide student? Do we think based on, our 90-second interaction with you, which admittedly, of course, we're not going to get a whole picture of you as a student, but will we be able to sort of discern based on demographic information and what you're telling us at the window and the school that you've picked and your past academic history, whether or not you are likely to stay in school, which is what the objective is from our side. And so we just try to talk to people about not having prescripted answers because they tend to come off as totally disingenuous. We try to talk to people about, if it's really wonderful how many prospective student applicants talk to us and they have benefactors of random family friends. That is amazing. I didn't know until I got this job how frequently that happened. And I will say, it sounds weird. And so if you're in that position where your parents may have a friend who is willing to pay for your school, we encourage you to be candid about, that person's relationship with your family, so that it doesn't come across as, somebody you met, on a social media site or something or whatever. Basically, we want to give you an opportunity to talk about your future as a bona fide student in the US and how you are going to have thoughtfully planned to pay for it. And those are sort of the two-pronged things.
Oh, great. Thank you, Brianna. Milissa, you had a question about student visas and acceptance letters, I think.
Yes. A question I have from students too is, once given an acceptance letter from a university, a US university, does that guarantee that they will be given a visa to study in the US?
No, it doesn't. Unfortunately, there are many prospective students who have been admitted to schools in the United States who will not qualify for U.S. visas. And, you know, one of the things that we ultimately are, I think that people in the visa world are sort of familiar with the concept of 214B, which is a reference to a law, a section of a law, which is our INA, which is the Immigration and Naturalization Act, which is what visas and really all immigration facets of the U.S. are, you know, adjudicated under. And so all people applying for non-immigrant visas, whether it be an L1, as I mentioned, which is a working visa, or an H-1B, which is a working visa, a B-1, B-2, which is a tourist visa, or an F-1, a student visa, the bottom line that all applicants must pass muster is that they must overcome the presumption of being an intending immigrant. And what that means in normal parlance is we essentially want to ensure that you intend to return to your resident country. We're not clairvoyant. We don't have a future, you know, a crystal ball. We get it wrong all the time, but we try really hard to get it correctly. And so and that's why you'll be asked about what you want to do with your degree in the future, because we want to assure that you have thought about how you are going to return to your home country, or if not, if you really do want to work in the U.S., that is legally acceptable and totally fine, but that you've thought about it and you will do it through legal means instead of you know, seeking out unlawful employment in the U.S. And so those are the things that we are looking for. And unfortunately, not all prospective students who receive an acceptance to a college will pass that bar.
Thanks again, Brianna. And good question, Melissa. Thanks for that. There is a question for Angela, and I'm a little confused. So Angela, feel free to type in some more details here. But it is, if you want to apply for a job and study in the United States after finishing your degree in architecture and want to do your master's, I mean, that sounds good to me. But Brianna, do you have any thoughts there?
Yeah. So as I was saying, if you are in school, it doesn't matter whether it's secondary school or an associate's program, whatever your level of education, in order to be legally enrolled in the school, you must have a student visa specifically annotated for that school and program. And so if you want to graduate from your undergrad school, same school, you know, if I want to go to Harvard, and I go there for undergrad, and then I want to go to Harvard Law School. Yes, it's the same place. It's all in Cambridge, but I would need 2 student visas. I would need my undergraduate visa. I would need to then leave and go have a second student visa application, a second student visa interview, and a second valid student visa for my next set of education, which in that hypothetical would be Harvard Law School. And so similarly, somebody who finishes their undergraduate work and wants a graduate degree, you still have to come back and get a new student visa that corresponds to your new degree. And as far as working, while you are on a student degree, or a student visa rather, you're mostly not allowed is the answer. There are some small caveats. And again, if you are in a program that is highly specialized, I refer you to your international student office, who will let you know where the where the caveats are and how to access them. But for the most part, if you're on a student visa, you are not permitted to work.
Great. What about family members though? If you're going to study in the United States, can you bring your family members with you?
Yes, they also need a visa, and it's an F2. It's a derivative of the F1. And so there are a number of restrictions around that, as you might suspect. And so, for example, if I want to study in the US and bring my spouse and my kid, they would both be eligible for F2. And to their interview, they would have to bring a marriage certificate, a birth certificate, to sort of identify that we are related and in an immediate family. My spouse would also not be permitted to work at all. And so my spouse might be asked about how the student who is not permitted to work, is going to financially support my spouse and my child without being able to work. And so it's a tricky bar and a slippery slope because of the restrictions on being able to maintain income. But, for example, in the world of constant telework, maybe my spouse is going to maintain her employment at a resident country working abroad. And wherein that would be, a very logical leap to then that is how our family is going to be, taken care of in the US when I'm at school all the time. But yes, derivative family members, which are spouse and child, are permitted to legally accompany.
Got it. Milissa, this sounds like a lot to think about. Do you have any advice? I mean, and many of these students are going to be young people. Do you have any advice for young people who are looking at this and going, oh my gosh, where do I even start?
Yes. Because Education USA advising centers are there to guide and assist students, I believe, well, if you are feeling overwhelmed, my best advice to you is to calling your Education USA advisor, and we'll make it as smooth and less challenging for you as possible. Because what we do is we take it step by step. Everything altogether seems like so much, but I believe with the step-by-step process to make it more comfortable and more attainable for the students. So be free, students, parents, to call in for me. You can reach me at castries@educationusa.org, or you can call me. My cell number is 758-715-5159. And we can make an appointment for us to go through the process step by step, or you can go to educationusa.state.gov and get a link to an Education USA advisor in any one of the islands. Thank you.
Thank you, Milissa. Yeah, so we've got educationusa.state.gov up there. If you go to our website, bb.usembassy.gov, there's a great list, including Melissa's name and Renita's name and their contact information as well. Just a couple minutes to go here. Brianna, any last minute advice for students who want to study in the United States?
Not particularly. Just, if you're having an interview and you're nervous about it, take a deep breath and speak your truth. And that we can say the number one thing we tell people is to not make stuff up, not lie on the spot, not memorize your answers. To the extent that you can think about it as a very quick and intense conversation, that's probably the easiest way to think of a visa interview. Since we're not looking for any right answers, we're looking for your answers. And if you don't succeed, please don't think of it as the worst thing in the world. When one door shuts, another opens.
Thanks, Brianna. I remember I went to study abroad in London, England, and I went to the consulate in Chicago, the British consulate there, and they had questions about my finances, and I had to, I got the temporary refusal, and I had to go away and then prove I had enough money to make this happen. And so I've been on the receiving end of like, we need to learn more about your story. So I completely agree, Brianna, with your statement that, if something happens, keep at it, figure out, what else you could do, or take a look at new avenues or new doors or windows that have opened. So thank you, Brianna. Milissa, any last words for anyone tuning in from St. Lucia or across the Eastern Caribbean?
Yes, students from St. Lucia, students who have studied at South Louis Community College, who are studying at South Louis Community College, we have a very attractive memorandum of understanding with a few universities in the US. I will be presenting them on Wednesday, so be sure to register and to tune in. And if you need the information from me, you can contact me at castries@educationusa.org. educationusa.org. And for secondary school students, it is never too late, too early to begin your interest and your search into studying in the US. It's even better if you start from secondary school so you can have time build up your finances and know exactly what area that you are interested in studying. Thank you, Larry.
Oh no, thank you, Milissa. And we'll throw up all these links into the comments section so you can have access to them and go back to them. But 5 o'clock, yes, on Wednesday. We're also doing more of these virtual conversations through Facebook Live Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday this week on the arts, on sports, and then Brianna, you're back with us on Thursday as well, right?
Correct.
Excellent. So thank you for joining us for our first virtual conversation at noon at this first day of International Education Week. Special thanks to Brianna Bailey Gevlin joining us here in the embassy, Milissa Emmanuel out in St. Lucia, and then, of course, Renita Charles, who joined us from Dominica earlier. Thanks to my team here at the embassy, for Sabrina Foster making this happen, and we will see you tomorrow if you'd like to tune in at noon. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.